Chelsea have dominated Barcelona. They fought for over an hour against the best team in the Premier League in Arsenal with 10 men, and now they've just been completely outclassed by Leeds United, and in this video we're going to explain why. We're going to be taking a look at what Leeds United did so well, highlight a key feature that led to Chelsea's terrible performance that shaped this incredible result. Leeds United were absolutely brilliant in this game. To a man, they were fantastic, and their game plan wasn't too bad either. Utilising their newly found 3-5-2 system, they looked to have their strikers press up against the Chelsea centre-backs. This unnerved them to a certain extent and really hampered their passing game. The aggression, the relentless aggression that came from this midfield three really did hamper the way that Chelsea looked to gain a flow through the match, and it prevented them from gaining a major foothold. Although Chelsea had a massive amount of possession, around 71%, it was what Leeds did with the ball after the fact that really shone through, and Chelsea really couldn't actually orchestrate any kind of meaningful attack, and that was down to the aggression that also came from the wing-backs, pressurising the Chelsea wingers. What I found was Goodmanson was absolutely brilliant. 7 tackles in this game, the most out of any player, but this system looks very similar to what Chelsea are normally used to facing, and what they would do with that is push Cucurella forwards into this attacking 10 role, but Leeds had a plan for that as well. Pressurising with Rodon onto Cucurella not only prevented the left back from really gaining any space, but then pushing Bogle forwards past Gittins allowed him to exploit the space that Cucurella would leave, and it continuously left Badiashile completely exposed and isolated, and it meant that they were continuously funneling down this right hand side, punishing the time that Cucurella would leave. It was very, very good, and it put Chelsea on the back foot a number of times. It was the aggression that I mentioned previously that really was at the forefront to Leeds' first goal, which came very early on in around about the 6th minute. It comes from Biol right here, just towards the edge of this box. He's running away from Liam Delap after a good piece of movement. But before we get into what actually happens later, we need to unpack this situation. So what we've got here is Biol running away from Liam Delap, but let's actually take stock of the Chelsea defensive system. You've got a hybrid system here. You've got some man-marking players, and you've got some zonal players. The zonal players are in particular closer to the goal. This means that they're able to head out from their particular area or their particular zone, and you've got the man-marking players for when the Leeds players decide that they're going to make a movement. In theory, this covers both bases, but if you lose your man, it really does create havoc for that zonal system, and that's exactly what we see here. We see Biol make a fantastic movement away from Liam Delap, and he manages to get towards the front post, and this is why it's so chaotic, because he gets the run onto that fantastic cross. The moment he meets that cross, because he has so much power and so much speed, he manages to get above and away from Chalobah, who is defending this zone, and this means that he's able to get his head onto the ball way before the Chelsea defender, who isn't proactive enough in his particular area. It means that it fires into the goal, and it ends up being 1-0. A fantastic, brilliant goal that was orchestrated by Leeds, really exploiting the frailties in this Chelsea hybrid system. Leeds were just as good going forwards as they were defensively, but again it was the tenacity and aggression that underpinned the good tactics that they brought to the table, and this really allowed them to kick on, especially with that dynamism that they had in the centre of the park, utilising great runs from Goodmanson and Bogle, who really did act as wingers when Leeds decided to go forwards, allowed for them to start to create aggressive movements into these wide areas, forcing 1v1 situations between themselves and the Chelsea fullbacks. And if they managed to get past the Chelsea wingers, there was a lot of free and open space for them to start to create different attacking triangles with their midfield partners. But what you also had was a front two, something that's quite rare nowadays, but something that really did work against this frail Chelsea back line. Nemecha and Calvert-Lewin pinned themselves on towards the Chelsea centre-backs, and it meant that they were always forcing those 1v1 engagements, meaning that if they were strong enough, they were good enough, and they were able to get their head on a number of crosses. crosses. Speaking of crosses, they managed to orchestrate a number of good situations, especially in these inside zones. Tanaka, Stack and Ampadu did a brilliant job of not only rotating when they were pressurised by the Chelsea midfielders, but also working with the wing-backs to start to create crosses to link into the box for Nemecha and Calvert-Lewin. Calvert-Lewin, I thought, was in particular a standout when it came to going forwards, winning 11 out of his 15 duels in total. That was some of the most out of the entirety of the game, and he was extremely influential in building up play, but also getting onto the end of those brilliant crosses. And this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Look at how Leeds are progressing down this right-hand side, forcing those rotations from those Chelsea players and then bringing them into scenarios that they don't necessarily want to be, but also organising and orchestrating the ability for them to cross balls into the box. Look at what you've got. You've got Ampadu right here, you've got Stack, and you've got Tanaka. This Leeds midfield three was everywhere, but it was the way that they harmonised with each other that really did cause Chelsea so many problems. In this particular instance, you've got the right centre-back in Rodon moving forwards to create a better run and a better piece of movement. This allows Bogle to then move in field and lay off the ball towards Stack. He then plays a brilliant cross right here, whipping it round towards the two strikers. And speaking of the strikers, here they are. You've got one with a diving header in Calvert-Lewin, and you've got Nemecha peeling off the back of Tosin. It's absolutely fantastic. Look at this. It's brilliant. A front two, a classic front two. They are strong, they are powerful, and in this particular instance, if it wasn't for a great Sancho save, they would have scored. Brilliant. Leeds' second goal is yet another clear and brilliant example of their tenacity, their aggression, and their work off the ball. This is something that really did hamper Chelsea and really did hurt Chelsea throughout the game. They just couldn't match the energy that Leeds had. Leeds bullied them in so many different instances, and this was one of them. But before we get into that, we need to break down what's actually happening here. You've got that Leeds man mark system in midfield. Tanaka pushing onto Santos. You've got Stack pushing onto Enzo. And you've also got Ampadu pushing onto Joao Pedro. This prevented Chelsea from really gaining that midfield foothold. And as I mentioned previously, if you move Cucurella, Leeds have a plan for that as well. Speaking of, in particular, Bogle moving into space, look at this dynamic that's happening right here. Gittins isn't looking at Bogle, and Bogle is just stealing a march into that space. Very interesting. But as the ball gets played over this Leeds left-hand side, the Chelsea right-hand side, of course there's a miscontrol here from Enzo Fernandez. But then what have you got? You've got 1, 2, 3 and 4 looking to pounce onto the ball. It's absolutely sensational. They win the ball back and it goes into open play. But once this happens, look at this. You've got Gittins and you've got Bogle. We highlighted them a second ago. Bogle gets there first, but what does Bogle do? He plays this pass first time. It's absolutely sensational. This is key to opening up an extra channel of space for Tanaka, and this is why the shot is able to be taken. It's absolutely brilliant. He opens his foot up and just lays it off around Santos as he's being pressured. This gives Tanaka the time and space. It gives him an extra second to set himself, and boy does he set himself. It is a fantastic hit. Borderline unsavable for me. It was brilliant. A poor amount of Chelsea pressure coming from that back line, but don't take anything away from the strike because it was wondrous. Earlier on, I mentioned a key feature behind Chelsea's terrible performance, and I believe there is a fundamental issue in this particular instance which gave them their disjointed nature. I don't think Enzo Maresca took this tie and this opponent in Leeds United seriously enough, and I don't think he gave them the respect they need. When you're going for a title, you require consistency, and that consistency is bred from continuous performances, but it also is bred from relationships. Those relationships are only established through personnel maintaining their slot and starting position. And while you might need to chop and change certain players due to a number of factors, you need to maintain at least some of those relationships to be able to take the weight and burden of having to change out those players. It's what allows the top teams to continue to flow. So when I had a look back in the previous 2 games that Chelsea had, I found the certain players that maintained their positions, and then compared that and contrasted that to the starting 11 that Enzo Maresca picked right here. And what I found was quite alarming, and I mapped it out for you. So take a look at this. This is the connection map that these Chelsea players had in correlation to their previous 2 games. You can see that quite a lot of it is red, meaning that almost none of these players have a connection with each other or have had a connection with each other in the last 2 games, meaning they're cold. There are no relationships. There are only a few relationships, but they're in the particular wrong position. A perfect example of this is Enzo with Chalobah, but Chalobah is playing right back rather than centre back. 2 very different roles. And then you take a look at the one connection that is available, and that's between Enzo and Pedro. This is alarming, and this really contributed to the extremely disjointed nature that Chelsea had. They don't know each other's game, or at the very least they're not comfortable with it. And if they are comfortable with it, they're not comfortable enough to be able to automatically assume the tendencies and the real habits that these players have, meaning it's going to be disjointed and it's not going to flow anywhere near as smoothly as it should, and that breeds inconsistency. And while I don't think it was the root cause to this, I do believe it had an impact, because relationships on football pitches matter, especially through the defence. You need a solid defence that understands the tendencies of each other, and in this particular scenario, it all falls apart. You've got a good press from the Leeds forward. Gusto really should either clear his lines or look to make a forward pass over the top. But he doesn't. He plays it back towards Tosin. Now, Tosin isn't expecting this. You can tell this by his body language. Look at his body position right here. He's not ready for that at all. But Gusto plays the pass anyway. This takes Tosin by surprise. Again, if they knew each other's game, if they had that relationship, I don't think this would happen. But of course, it's a huge mistake. As it gets pressurized, he takes a touch. You cannot take a touch here. You just can't. It's borderline unforgivable, and I'm sure there'll be Chelsea fans that don't forgive it, because it has really cost them here. It gets pressurised, he gets closed down, and he takes the ball off Tosin. It's really good from the Leeds forward. It's sensational tenacity. It's brilliant aggression, and Leeds need to be given so much credit. As he goes forwards, he still makes an extra challenge on the goalkeeper, and it falls to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but it could have been so very avoidable for Chelsea. As for Leeds, it is a remarkable, a brilliant, and incredible win that they thoroughly deserved. But of course, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you, so please do get involved. What did you make of Chelsea? What did you make of Leeds? And how do you think both sides are going to do come the second half of this season? I'd love to hear from you. Please get involved in the comments. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.